Good afternoon, everybody. All my old friends, new friends. This is your new best friend, Efren Tinoco, coming at you again from my little corner of North Memphis. All right, we're losing daylight here, but as you can tell, there's a storm. I'm going to switch inside a little bit. But there is a storm coming in. Obviously, the remnants of Tropical Storm Lara are coming through. I drove in from Little Rock, Arkansas earlier today, and caught what was left of the business end of it. Winds in excess of 40 miles an hour, very low visibility. Could have been really bad. I did see people who had been washed over the edge of the Interstate 40 by wind or something, or averting a situation. Some rescue operations there, but anyway, left that behind me as storm tracks north, and then eventually uh, west to east north of us. So it's gonna, hang around here, some parts of it for quite a while. But it's getting bad. So let me continue inside. Okay. So anyway, yeah, we're moving inside now. Keep everybody, not just know that I'm going to tell you what you need to know, not what you want to hear, as your new best friend. In spite of the fact that I am in North Memphis and you can be in East Memphis, downtown, Midtown, or whatever little part of the world in Miami, Los Angeles, New York, hopefully all over the world listening to me. But keep the people in Louisiana and Arkansas in your thoughts, in your prayers, in your acts of penance, or in your acts of sacrifice and support right now. It's going to be. I mean, if they're not going to be, there's a lot of sustained winds still, and that are dangerous and damaging. And whoever loses a roof in this weather because of a tree is going to have it bad, because this thing's packing a lot of rain. Um, but yeah, It'll pass over us in the middle of the night tonight and through most of tomorrow here in Memphis. But anyway, this isn't the only storm gathering right now, and I apologize for the metaphor. Um, but as you know, the NBA and later the Major League Baseball and maybe other organizations um, are had interrupted the games in direct response to the events and lack of events in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Um, the basically um, misbehavior of the police department and the um, with respect to that poor gentleman who is now paralyzed for being shot in the back in front of his kids. Thankfully, he will survive. He'll be survive with a lot of support from all of us. And finally, I guess because of mounting pressure, the thug who that little whippersnapper who took the AR-15 to Kenosha to control the crowds, or whatever little mission was, um, went to um, went to went there to see how we can control the situation or whatever. End up shooting a couple people, but yeah, um, and to the with no interference from the local police department, who one of whose members, of course, shot the gentleman in the back. He finally was identified, the perpetrator who shot uh, that poor gentleman in the back. Um, so it looks like pressure was brought to fore, not only to um, capture the um, this little whippersnapper with the AR-15 after driving home successfully to Iowa, but also pressure was brought to bear to identify the policeman who was responsible for well, excessive use of force, given obviously non-threat. Um, so an aggravated, use of force given the fact that he was in front of his kids. But I want to recap a number of topics I've talked about before, and give you some new information you may not have heard, but is out in the public domain, so I can speak with authority on it. Um, you know, you wonder why CEOs and some of the very rich have not weighed in on some of this, because obviously, they would know what the laws are and what is good for most people. Um, but this is a small subsection of our population that is immune to a lot of laws or problems that arise out of out of targeted laws, um, or also influence these laws themselves, um, with respect to police brutality, um, or discrimination or the like. Um, so they haven't, we've had events ever since I would maybe say this current round of conflict between not just Black Lives Matter, but now the general public and police forces is due to, all right, transformer must have blown up nearby, um, is due to, um, okay, I wanted to say Trayvon Martin. We got to look at, you know, after we're in the after Trayvon Martin period of relations in the United States. Um, and so my point is that the CEOs and the shareholders and the owners of our economy haven't spoken up about this. It doesn't affect them. Um, Maybe this the existence of this conflict is like a perhaps a shiny object for them to um, uh, continue to work along, work as they work to continue to grow their wealth, and by growing their size of the economic pie. Um, we also have an issue of the fact that right now some of the NBA owners are obviously following the lead of their players because they have to. The players are not making any bones about how they feel in most of these cases, and maybe to the extent they even have to have Black Lives Matter painted on the court. Um, it's a remarkable, in fact, remarkable. And there's most people, I would have to say, are okay with that, because otherwise they would not have been able to do it. It would not have been a good marketing move. But obviously, ever since George Floyd, there is a larger coalition among the populace, especially the under 50 segment of the population, that is sympathetic to the cries of uh, brown and black people, vis-a-vis the police, for example. Um, and Also, I want to. This is what does this illustrate? It illustrates um, one of the mottos of France and Haiti. Like I said before, uh, liberté, égalité, and fraternité. This is literally liberty, equality, and fraternity. But what do we mean by fraternity? No, brotherhood. It's brotherhood. Brotherhood is a very um, an underemphasized aspect of society because it's actually kind of discouraged. We have the individualism is is emphasized a lot, so we distance themselves. The things don't directly affect us. We distance ourselves from it. We don't worry about it. But we don't see how things, we don't hear the warnings of people from Eastern Europe says stuff in the United States is getting bad. We've been down this road before. I'm telling you, we know where it leads. But a few of us have wised up early in the game. But I guess George Floyd was a catalyst for us to begin, more of us to coalesce around the plight of 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 the of minorities who were brutalized. Um, and I realized that as a light-skinned Latino, I am not one that's going to be caught. I don't experience these problems, but they have hit home to me because of two things: because of my service in a jury duty, and all in 1999, and also because of I lost a friend, a choir member of a choir that I directed, Ismael Lopez, um, who's who was shot at 2 a.m. by police who came to his home in response to a domestic violence um, warrant addressed to the person across the street, which was not produced until after um, my friend Ismail was shot. Um, One thing that was remarkable about that case was the behavior of the, um, I forget, I think this name is Champion. I think so. The district attorney for Mississippi, further north, for South Haven, Mississippi, and echoed um, echoed that poor guy Brown from Ferguson, Missouri, who was echoed his circumstance because of the odd behavior of that prosecutor there, who was prosecuting, who was criticizing the actions and tactics of the people whose side he was formally on, the prosecution, to criticize the tactics of the prosecution, and he's the attorney general or district attorney, of this area. Um, Anyhow, very suspect, and so we hear. Um, Before I get to the direct point, the punchline, I want to talk about fraternité, a little bit about brotherhood. Why did Colin Kaepernick kneel? And, you know, this, these sentiments were echoed by, um, what's the name of the coach from the Los Angeles Clippers? Anyway, my name will come back to me because I had him. I knew him. I was able to recall him before. But he said, it's obvious that, we might love America, but America does not love us back. Well, it's this lack of brotherhood that enables this. We might not be bigots, but those problems are not our problems, are they? Yes, they are, because they visit us when as we veer towards fascism and the list of oppressed people grows in order to benefit uh, the folks who are better connected. Um, well, the problems will visit us. Militarism of our police will affect everybody. We are all able to be shot at. We are all able to be thrown into a van when they have denied um, undocumented immigrants their day in court and throw them in a van and basically get them deported before they can get their legal team together. This is a due process being deprived them. These are extrajudicial deportations. So now there's extrajudicial, um, I don't know, detainments. Throw us into a van if we wander away from the crowd for exercising our First Amendment rights. Hmm. Yeah, we're discovering the importance of fraternité, of brotherhood in all this. But the punchline to all this is that it's not the concerns about how to solve this problem are not congruent with the nature of the problem, as it is not very well known what it is. What is the problem with respect to our municipal, our certain municipal police forces that fall into a certain pattern, especially the relationships to the chief and the attorney general or district attorney in their area, um, where they collude in some very bad behavior towards black and brown people. Um, these are not the actions. These actions are not resolvable by better training, perhaps by better recruitment tactics, and not just by diverting resources over to social programs or to outreaches or education. This is also, but that's not the direct cause of all this. Poverty, yes, 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 of course. Poverty leads to crime, but that isn't where the behavior of the police come in. You know, the police are not scared as much, okay, because untrained you have untrained minorities who know exactly what to do when they're stopped. They know exactly how to behave. They know exactly how to, conduct themselves for their own lives' sake. And some of it gets shot anyway in front of their own wife. This is a familiar case that some of you don't recall the name. Like, oh my gosh, sir, you just shot my husband. Imagine what kind of poise it took to say, sir, you just shot my husband. Hmm. Um, no, this isn't training. This isn't um, fear necessarily among the police force. No, 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 no. The only people, I mean, and these aren't the acts of simple bigots on the police force. These are not simple bigots, simple people. It's people who are just simply allergic to and adverse to pluralism and equal justice in society. They're outright hostile to it. Hostile. We have police who are hostile to this, hostile to justice. They're doing their life's work. Why? Because they are white supremacists. Oh, by the way, um, if my time comes too soon, I did not commit suicide, but I'm going to speak on things that are publicly known, but not very well known. In 19, no, I'm sorry, in 2006, the FBI did a study about how white supremacists get into the police and military in large numbers, which makes sense. Which makes sense. Because if you are given the opportunity to do what you love the most and get paid for it, which is, you know, even shoot minorities, you'll take it. You'll take it. You will take that job for sure. You'll love it. These are folks who are hostile to justice, and they know what chiefs of police um, and attorneys general and district attorneys are amenable to this and will back them up, who will get up and talk in criticism of the tactics of the prosecution, of overreach, in in pursuit of justice, like whoever that was in Ferguson, who, in the case of Michael Brown. But yeah, the study was repressed because of the timing of the completion of the study. It was one, Mr. Eric Holder, believe what you think of him, what you want to believe, but it was his honor to submit the study to Congress for inspection and consideration, and of where we were in incipient Tea Party politics. They were. It was um, it was an outrageous statement to say that our police are responsible for this, and what about, how can you accuse them of being white supremacists? The FBI, if anybody, they would lie in the other way. They would lie in the other direction. No, but they came out and showed that this was a threat. And when you look at the behavior, when you look at kids getting shot, okay, and for having a toy gun, and kids getting allowed to drive home to another state for carrying a real gun and using it, dude, that's a white supremacist action. If I'm not saying this country is full of white supremacists, but if there are if there are 200,000 young male white supremacists out there in this country, which is about right? One out of every 10,000 people or so, or less. Am I getting my numbers correct? No. One out of every thousand, less than one out of every thousand, are adverse, are hostile to multiculturalism and justice for all, and the interests, and plurality and pluralism. Well, you're going to know which police forces to join. These guys who police Ferguson don't necessarily live in Ferguson or didn't come up in Ferguson. Kenosha's, they probably have cops from all over. They probably live all over southeastern Wisconsin. Um, and they probably come from all over the country. But it's that these things are known. These police forces that are friendly hosts to this kind of activity are known. I would posit South Haven as a possible friendly host. South Haven, Mississippi, right to our south. I'd posit Millington, given my experiences as a juror. I think Los Angeles was kind of veering in that direction for a while. New York is suspect, but we have to consider, what the flip is going on in New York. They might be cheap general thugs, but uh, you know, white supremacists are useful, especially if there is a lack of brotherhood. But right now, I would say um, we have to stand behind our brothers of another colored mother. We have to look at the behavior of our law enforcement officers with a very critical eye. We might even have to make good trouble, like John Lewis said, put our time and our bodies in the way. And we have to force our employers to do something about it. And we have to come down hard on people found to do this, to commit these acts. We have to force our mayors to root out white supremacists from our police forces. First and foremost, we must establish consequences for this. And then do things like community outreach and civilian review boards, all of which are wonderful, but are feckless if we have white supremacists continuing to populate certain police departments doing these things. These things are so awful, they can only be committed by people who are absolutely hostile to the promises of this country. Next time this happens, anywhere, be it around you or somewhere else, get all the facts and consider the people of force the names, force bringing up of the names, and track how this is resolved. And in your own community, make sure they get the goons out of your police force. Thank you. We'll talk again.